guys, the international break is almost over and Championship football is back this weekend. We're back for another episode of our weekly Championship score predictions, and we've got some tasty matches coming up this weekend. As always, I want to get your verdict on these games in the comments down below. 250 likes would be massively appreciated. But without any further ado, let's jump in. And starting out with the game on Friday night, it's Rotherham going up against Ipswich. Now, Ipswich definitely the overwhelming favourites coming into this fixture. At the end of the day, it is 23rd in the Championship going up against second. But I've always got the feeling with Rotherham, especially in home matches, that they are capable of pulling up a shock. And it's worth remembering that in Rotherham's 5 home matches so far this season, they have only lost 2 of those games, averaging more than a goal per game when playing at home as well. 1.4 goals per game for Rotherham right now. With that being said, Ipswich have just looked a cut above most Championship sides so far this season, and particularly on the road. Up until this point, no Championship side has picked up more points on the road than Ipswich actually have. They've won 5 of their 6 away matches so far this season. I think they've actually been really good and versatile in being able to mix up their style of play at home compared to on the road. So while I think Rotherham will have to be really defensively on their game for this one, they'll look to plug up those gaps and won't let Ipswich open up the pitch too much. I just think Ipswich get over the line with this one with the quality they've shown so far. So score prediction here, I'm going to go 2-0 Ipswich. Fancy them for another win on the road in this one. Next then, and for the early kickoff on Saturday, it's my side North End going up against Millwall. Now it's worth noting that Preston do not have a good record against Millwall over the last few years. Preston haven't beat Millwall in their last 8 meetings with them, and do you know what? This game really could go either way, because while Preston do sit 3rd in the Championship at the moment, we weren't on a great run before the international break. We'd lost 3 on the bounce, and this really is a game where we need to show a bit more fight and sort of bounce back from that adversity that we had before the international break. Millwall, while they have been quite inconsistent so far this season, I think will prove to be a tricky customer in this game. I think they've actually been maybe a little bit more consistent on the road this season than they have been at home when their performances have really fluctuated. Up until this point, Millwall have only lost 1 of their 5 matches on the road. Don't tend to be that many goals in those sorts of matches either. Millwall tend to keep it quite tight, and to be completely honest, I think 1 goal either way could win this one, but I wouldn't be surprised at a goalless draw, which wouldn't be great for the Sky viewership with this one being the early kickoff. Score prediction, reluctantly, I'm going to say a goalless draw. I really think that both sides could just nullify each other there. Next then to Blackburn up against Cardiff, 2 sides who have had quite contrasting starts to this season so far, but just to show how tight the Championship is right now, if Blackburn win this game, they'll only be 1 point behind Cardiff, which is crazy considering, you know, Cardiff have been flirting with the playoffs and Blackburn well regimented into that bottom half of the Championship table. Now these 2 sides have already played each other in the EFL Cup earlier in the season, and Blackburn did win 5-2. It is noting that both sides made plenty of changes for those matches, but a point worth noting nonetheless. Now, prior to the international break, Cardiff just seemed to run out of steam a little bit. They've been on that brilliant winning run, but then they lost that game against Middlesbrough and had that draw against Watford, neither of which being the best performance, and maybe this break over the international break will have been good for that Cardiff squad and Errol Bullock to sort of get them back on tune and firing after the international break. Blackburn hadn't been on a great run, but then all of a sudden everything just seemed to click in that game against QPR. 4 goals in that game, some brilliant attacking play, Sigurdsson especially really catching the eye. This is a game which I could very much see going either way. I've just got a feeling that maybe on the back of that QPR performance, Blackburn string a few wins together. They tend to be that quite streaky team that will lose a few in a row then win a few in a row. So just for that, I think they could edge this one. 2-1 Blackburn, I'm saying, but I wouldn't be surprised if that went the other way. Next then to Ashton Gate for Bristol City up against Coventry. Now I don't think there'll be all too much between these sides in this game. They're both sat next to each other in the Championship table right now, both with 15 points from their first 11 matches. Bristol City's home form so far this season hasn't exactly been sparkling, just 1 win from their first 5 home matches, but on the opposite end of that, Coventry on the road this season have only won 1 of their away matches. A draw in this game wouldn't surprise me. Coventry have been very draw heavy so far this season with 6 draws from their first 11 matches, and you know, we're saying throughout the international break that if Coventry just want to turn the screw ever so slightly and they start turning a few of those draws into wins, then they will shoot up the Championship table like that. But I see Bristol City being a bit of a tricky customer for them in this game. So score prediction prediction here, I think I'm going for a draw. 1-1 I'm saying between these two. And it's a big game next up. It's Huddersfield going up against QPR. If QPR win this game, they'll go level on points with Huddersfield. I think that as of right now, a lot of people probably would be predicting both of these sides to be in and around the relegation zone come the end of the season. So the results of these types of matches can be absolutely pivotal come the end of the season. QPR really didn't leave things on a good note before the international break. That disastrous performance against Blackburn, which saw them shipping 4 goals in that game, and Huddersfield still looking for their first win under Darren Moore. Still feel like that game against Sheffield Wednesday that ended goalless was a little bit of a missed opportunity for Huddersfield. But back at home for this one against the QPR side who suddenly that defensive fragility that they seemed to iron out at one point, that's come back into their game of late. I think they've been too easy to play against recently. I think I've got Huddersfield winning this game if I'm honest. Score prediction here, going to go 2-1 Huddersfield, and for Darren Moore to claim his first win as Huddersfield boss. Next then to Hull up against Southampton. Now this one could be quite an interesting game. Hull could do with getting back to winning ways, and before the international break Southampton had started to find a bit more of their flow. 7 points now from their last 3 matches, albeit that draw against Rotherham was quite frustrating, albeit a bit of a freak result with how many chances the Saints actually created in that game. Now, Hull have been fairly draw heavy of late. 5 of their last 8 matches have all ended level, and looking into their home form so far this season, Hull yet to lose a match at home, but they've only won 1 of their first 5. 4 of their home matches this season have all ended level. I wouldn't be completely surprised if this game headed down a similar sort of avenue. Gut feeling for this game right now is 1 goal wins it either way, or as I'm going to predict it, I think it might end level. Score prediction, going to go for a 1-1 there between those two. A game which I think a lot of people are looking forward to this weekend is Middlesbrough up against Birmingham. Wayne Rooney's debut in the Birmingham dugout. Now, it's worth pointing out that Birmingham's start under Rooney is looking really tough on paper, and at the end of the day this start could really set the precedent for the rest of his time in charge at St Andrews. With John Eustace winning his last 2 matches, Rooney will be judged early on by the tune he gets out of this Birmingham squad. But even looking past this Middlesbrough fixture throughout the remainder of the month of October heading into November, Blues have tough games to come against Hull, Southampton, Ipswich and Sunderland. So yeah, I'm interested to see how Blues approach this game and whether or not we do immediately see any tactical tweaks that Rooney's starting to embed this into this squad that we weren't seeing before with Eustace. What I would say is, despite Middlesbrough having that really slow start to the season, they're not a side you want to be playing right now. In their last 5 matches, they've picked up 13 points in that time frame. Only Leicester have won more points than Middlesbrough have. They're scoring more goals right now, and while I do think they still give up chances to the opposition, I do think Birmingham will have quite a few opportunities to score in this game. They have started to look a little bit more tighter at the back. Back-to-back clean sheets is worth pointing out for this Borough squad. So, score prediction in this game, it should be a cracker, but I think I'm backing Borough here. Score prediction, I'm going to go 2-1 Middlesbrough. After that, to Carrow Road for Norwich against Leeds. It's Daniel Farke's return to Carrow Road in this game. I'm sure he'll get a good reception by the Norwich fans. But how do I see the game going? Well, I think this will be quite a good litmus test to see exactly where this Norwich squad is right now. I think that most of us expect Leeds to be up and around the top of the Championship come the end of the season, certainly in the playoff picture, whereas I think a few people would have Norwich just in the tier below that right now, wanting to break into that top 6, but whether or not they've got enough to go ahead and get over the line, I think that this game will tell us quite a bit about them. There has been a little bit of inconsistency in their play recently, especially on the road, but generally speaking at home, Norwich have usually delivered the goods. They've won 4 of their 5 home matches so far this season, with the only defeat coming against a very good Leicester City side. With that being said, I think that Leeds on their day can outgun most, if not all, teams in the Championship. And if Norwich aren't completely on their game defensively, I think that Leeds could get a couple goals in this game, which could make it a tricky afternoon. Overall, I could see it going either way, but I think I'm slightly favouring Leeds in this fixture. Score prediction for me, going to go 2-1 Leeds. Do you know what? This one could get a bit tasty as well. It's Stoke going up against Sunderland. Alex Neil up against his former employers. Now, Stoke really could do with a result in this game, and generally a change of fortunes after this international break. Just just 2 points above the relegation zone right now, and Sunderland will surely fancy their chances going up against this Stoke squad. With that being said, Sunderland did lose that match before the international break, quite a surprising one, 4-0 against Middlesbrough, albeit that red card didn't help them in that game. Now, speaking of shocks, I remember an absolute shock in this fixture last season. That Alex Neil return to the Stadium of Light was really being bigged up, and Sunderland fans definitely fancying their chances in that fixture last season, and Stoke absolutely wiped the floor with them, walking away with a 5-1 away victory in this fixture last season. Not quite sure we're going to get a repeat of this season. I do see Sunderland as the overwhelming favourites coming into this game. They're averaging 2 goals per game scored on the road. I just think they've got quite a bit more about them than this Stoke squad right now. Whether or not Alex Neil will have tinkered with a few things over this international break, we'll have to wait and see, but generally speaking, going off the form book, momentum, I'm going to go 3-1 Sunderland in this game. Next then we go to Swansea up against Leicester, and this is a meeting of 2 of the most informed sides in the league right now. Swansea have won their last 4 games on the bounce, they're 5 unbeaten, but they're going up against top of the table Leicester, who just have looked to cut above pretty much every championship side they've gone up against so far this season. This will be a really interesting test of character, and I almost see a lot of these games against Leicester as somewhat of a free hit for a lot of championship sides, because I just think that Leicester will be so far clear come the end of the season, especially if they carry on with this current trajectory for much longer. But I could see Swansea giving them a decent run for their money. They seem to have more confidence about their play right now. They're scoring more goals, getting into some good positions, and it seems like Duff has the formula figured out. With that being said, I just think Leicester are a cut above right now, and it's hard to look past them in a lot of these sorts of matches. So while I think Swansea could put up a fight, I'm going to go 2-0 Leicester in this game. Just think they'll have too much come the full 90. Next then to Watford up against Sheffield Wednesday. It's Danny Roll's first game in charge of the Owls, and I mean, I think he has a real opportunity to start with a little bit of momentum. Looking at Wednesday's upcoming fixtures, if they are going to make a proper stab at survival this season, they absolutely need to capitalise on these next 3 matches where they've got games against Watford, Plymouth and Rotherham. All sides who are in the round where Wednesday are in the bottom half of the table currently. They absolutely need to make a decent stab at these next 3 matches. They're 7 points adrift of safety right now, but that could all change with one successful 3-game week, but I think that's probably easier said than done right now with what we've seen from this Wednesday squad so far this season and just how much work is going to be needed to make them properly competitive. Obviously still looking for their first win after 11 matches. Now Watford have shown some serious vulnerabilities of late that Sheffield Wednesday can look to capitalise on, but what I would say about Watford is despite all their flaws, I still think they get into some decent areas in the final third. In their last 2 home matches, for example, we've seen them score 4 goals. Ultimately they only picked up 1 point from those 2 matches though because of some defensive blunders. Honestly, I see this game as a bit of a must win for Watford, to be honest. I think quite a few Watford fans will start to lose patience with what Ishmael's trying to do if they don't deliver all 3 points in this game. I think with that extra attacking quality, the home side might get over the line here, but I'm not really confident in backing either side for this game. With that being said, I'll slightly edge Watford for a 2-1 home victory, but yeah, I don't see the best game of football being played there. And then finishing today's episode at the Hawthorns with West Brom up against Plymouth. Now, West Brom were on that quite consistent run of form, but then they were really brought back down to earth with a bump before the international break with that quite disappointing showing against Birmingham, losing that game 3-1. This does seem like a decent opportunity to bounce back against the Plymouth side who have lost a bit of their flow recently. Just 1 win in their last 6 matches, that 1 win being that bonkers 6-3 victory against Norwich. And when a team like that has that sort of performance in them, it does make them quite unpredictable. While Plymouth haven't had things going their way recently, it only takes a performance like that and suddenly they can put together maybe a few results. Now, Plymouth have been quite guilty of giving away some big opportunities to the opposition so far this season. Only Rotherham have conceded a higher XG up until this point than Plymouth have, so I would expect West Brom to get a few opportunities and, to be honest, probably to score a couple goals in this game. Just a question of whether or not Plymouth can go punch for punch with them, and their foes will be on song for them in this game. I would say that Plymouth do have quite a tough month coming up 5 of their next 6 matches are all up against sides currently in the top half of the table, so that's worth considering. Honestly, I think my gut feeling is that West Brom probably come out of this game with all 3 points. Score prediction there, going to go 2-0 to the Baggies. But guys, there we have it. That will now wrap it up for today's video. Thank you very much for tuning in. If you did go on to enjoy, make sure to leave a like and do get all your score predictions in the comments down below. Other than that though guys, thank you very much for watching and I'll see you all in the next one.